form is the woods, the beast, a bobcat padding through red sumac, the pheasant in brake or goldenrod that he stalks both rise to the flush. The brief low flutter and catch in air, and trees, rich green, the moving of boughs. And the separate leaf yield to conclusions they do not care about or watch. The dead frayed bird, the beautiful plumage, the spore of feathers and slight pick bones. James Harrison, better known as Jim Harrison, December the 11th, 1937 to March the 26th, 2016, was an American poet, novelist and essayist. He was a prolific and versatile writer, publishing over 36 books in several genres, including poetry, fiction, non-fiction, children's literature and memoir. He wrote screenplays, book reviews, literary criticism and published essays on food, travel and sport. One of his titles was called Raw and Cooked. Harrison indicated that of all his writing, his poetry meant the most to him. Harrison published 24 novellas during his lifetime and is considered America's foremost master of that form. His first commercial success came with the 1979 publication of the trilogy of novellas Legends of the Fall, 2 of which were made into movies. Harrison's work has been translated into multiple languages, including Spanish, French, Greek, Chinese, and Russian. He was the recipient of multiple awards and honors, including a Guggenheim Fellowship, 1969, the Mark Twain Award for Distinguished Contributions to Midwestern Literature, 1990, and induction into the American Academy of Arts and Letters, 2007. Harrison wrote that the dream that I could write a good poem, a good novel, or even a good movie for that matter, has devoured my life. Sketch for a job application blank. My left eye is blind and jogs like a milky sparrow in its socket. My nose is large and never flares in anger. The front teeth bucked, but not in lechery. I sucked my thumb until the age of 12. Oh, my youth was happy and I was never lonely, though my friends called me Pig Eye and the teachers thought me loony. When I bruised, my sight kept intact. I fell from horses and once a cow, but never pigs. A neighbour lost a hand to a sow. But I had some fears. The salesman of eyes, his case was full of fishy baubles against black velvet, jewelled gore, the great cocked hoof of a Belgian mare, a nest of milk snakes by the water trough, electric fences, my uncle's hounds, the pump arm of an oil well, the chop and whir of a combine in the sun. From my ancestors, the Swedes, I suppose I inherit the love of rainy woods, kegs of herring and neat whiskey. I remember long nights of pinochle, the bulge of Redman in my grandpa's cheek. The rug smelled of manure and kerosene. They laughed loudly and didn't speak for days. But on the other side, from the German Mennonites, their rag smoke prayers and porky daughters, I got intolerance and aimless diligence. In 51, during a revival, I was saved. I prayed on a cold register for hours and woke up lame. I was baptized by immersion in the tank at Williamstown. The rusty water stung my eyes. I left off the old things of the flesh, but not for long. One night beside a pond, she dried my feet with her yellow hair. Oh, actual event, dead quotient, cross, become green. I still love Juval, but pity Hagar. Now self is the first sacrament, who loves not the misery and taint of the present tense is lost. I strain for a lunar arrogance. Light macerates, the lamp infects warmth. More warmth, I cry. David. He is young. The father is dead. Outside, a cold November night. The mourners' cars are parked upon the lawn. Beneath a porch light, 3 brothers talk to 3 sons and shiver without knowing it. His mind's all black thickets and blood. He knows flesh slips quietly off the bone. He knows no last looks, that among the profusion of flowers the lid is closed to hide what no one could bear. That metal rends the flesh. He knows beneath the white-pointed creatures, stars, that in the distant talk of brothers, the father is dead. Exercise. Hear this touch. Grass parts for the snake in furrows, soil curves around itself. A rock topples into a lake. Roused organs, fur against cloth, arms unfold at the edge of a clearing. Fire selects new wood. A sequence of women. 1. I've known her too long. We devour as 2 mirrors, opposed, swallow each other 1,000 times at midpoints, lost in the black centre of the other. 2. She sits on the bed, breasts slack, watching a curl of dust float through a ray of sun, drift down to a corner. So brief this meeting with a strange child. Do I want to be remembered? Only as a mare might know. The body of her rider, the pressure of legs unlike any other. 3. The girl who was once my mistress is dead now, I learn, in childbirth. I thought that long ago women ceased dying this way. To set records straight, our enmity relaxes. I wrote a verse for her, to doll her by pieces, ring finger and lock of hair. But I am a poor Midas, to turn her golden, to make a Helen, grand whore of this graceless girl. The sparrow that died was only a sparrow. Though in the dark she doesn't sleep. On cushions, embraced by silk, no lover comes to her. In the first light, when birds stir, she does not stir or sing. Her eyes can't focus to this dark. Northern Michigan. On this back road, the land has the juice taken out of it. Stump fences surround nothing worth their tearing down. By a deserted filling station, a Vidal sign, the rusted hulk of a Fraser live bait on battered tin. A barn with half a tobacco ad owns the greenness of a manure pile. A half moon on a privy door, a rope swinging from an elm, a collapsed hen house, a pump with the handle up, the orchid with wild tangled branches. In the far corner of the pasture, in the shadow of the woodlot, a herd of 20 deer, 3 bucks are showing off. They jump in turn across the fence, flanks arc and twist to get higher in the twilight as the last light filters through the woods. Tree. Arrows are made from you. A guitar. Tables which hold food. The walls of this house. Your function is dictated in the shape of the wood from the sawyer who cradles you in iron tongs. The touch, the teeth of steel, but this is speech and comes from the throat. Your mouth or countless mouths are those leaves I look at now, with silver bellies and dark backs that draw in sun, the air, that transpire and breathe for you. They are of no use to us except as shade, the greenness we expect, but to you they are life, and compressed into blackness, after a century an inch of soil, they make you your food. Returning at night. Returning at night, there's a caltulpa moth in the barberry. On the table the flowers, left alone, turn black. In the root cellar the potato sprouts, creeping through the door, glisten white and tubular in the third phase of the moon. Apology. I don't weigh an hour in consecutive breaths. My sleeves are short, my elbows reveal thin wires attached to a skull that rattles when it wants to sing. But sometimes when a good rain falls and there is heat enough, some fine, clean grass, even flowers, grow up through the weeds in this boneyard. Lost. When hunting, I became lost. I walked for hours. All the ridges looked the same. The snow had a thick crust, but not enough to hold my weight. I crossed my path twice. It began to get dark. My sweat turned cold when between two huge charred pine stumps I thought I saw myself. I raised my rifle to shoot this ghost, but then my father spoke. She who is the other, without masks, pitiless, a bald eye in a dump, a third rail type who loves the touch of flesh, the bare thigh in a cafeteria, crying mercy to the stone. Unlyric, she coils and strikes for the sake of striking. I've had enough tonight. My small room is cavernous. I hang like a bat from rafters while below me hymns are sung. 3 figures move in a circle of light, dark trinity at whose touch paper becomes stone. Words float like cells, unite in reverse of nature. Let me sleep. My body shakes, a gourd in the hand of some giant child. Once I stood all night beside a road with only the metallic rattling of a sign to keep me company. In the first light of dawn I read, danger, curve, and in a ditch of weeds along a barbed wire fence there were 3 black crosses. Fair boy Christian takes a break. This other speaks of bones, blood wet and limber. The rock embodies. He takes me to the slaughterhouse where lying sprawled as a giant coil of rope, the bowels of cattle. At the county fair we pay an extra quarter to see the hermaphrodite. We watch the secret air tube blow up the skirts of the farm girls, tanned to the knees, then strangely white. We eat spare ribs and pickled eggs. The horses tear the ground to pull a load of stone. In a burning tent we see Fantasia do her love dance with the Spaniard. They glisten with sweat, their limbs knocked together while below them farm boys twitter like birds. Then the breasts of a huge negress rotate to a march in opposing directions, and everyone stamps and cheers. The others shine in blurring speed. Out of the tent we pass produce stalls, some hung with ribbons, squash and potatoes stacked in pyramids. A buck-toothed girl cuts her honourable mention cake. When she leans to get me water from a milk pail, her breasts are chaste. Through the evening I sit in the car, the other is gone, while my father watches the harness race. The 4-H talent show. I think of St. Paul's epistles and pray. I pray the removal of what my troubled eyes have seen. Morning. The mirror tastes him breathe clouds, hands pressed against glass. In a yellow morning light, a jay flutters in unaccustomed silence. From bush to limb of elm, a cow at breakfast pauses, her jaws lax in momentary stillness. Far off a milk truck rattles on the section road. Light low mist floats over the buckwheat through the orchard. The neighbours' dogs bark when 4 roosters announce day. Garden. Standing at the window at night. My shadow is the length of the garden. I move a huge arm and cause plants to spring up, tomatoes to ripen. My head is as large as a strawberry bed, and I can cup 2 bales of straw in one hand. I take pride in this strength, fed by light and darkness, wielded against my father's garden, a lord of shadows. Horse. A quarter horse. No rider. Canters through the pasture. Thistles raise soft purple burrs. Her flanks are shiny in the sun. I whistle and she runs almost sideways towards me. The oats in my hand are sweets to her. Dun mane furling in its breeze, her neck corseted with muscle, wet teeth friendly against my hand. How can I believe you ran under a low maple limb to knock me off? Kinship. Great Uncle Wilhelm, Mennonite, patriarch, eater of blood sausage, leeks, head cheese, salt pork. You are led into church by that wisp you plundered for 9 children. Your brain has sugared now, your white beard is limp. You talk of acres of corn where there is only snow. Your sister, a witch old as a stump, says you are punished now for the unspeakable sin that barred you from the table for 7 years. They feed you cake to hasten your death. Your land is divided. Curse them, but don't die. February sweet. Song, angry bush with the thrust of your roots deep in this icy ground. Is there a polar sun? Month of the frozen goat. La Roberta says cultivate new friends. Profit will be yours with patience. Not that stars are crossed or light to be restored. We die from want of velocity. And you, longest of months, with your false springs, you don't help or care about helping, so splendidly ignorant of us. Today icicles fell, but they will build downward again. Who has a fate? This fig tree talks about bad weather. Here is a man drunk, in the glass, his blurred innocence renewed. The great Leitzel, before falling to her death, did 249 flanges on the Roman rings. Her wrist was often raw and bloody, but she kept it hidden. He remembers Memorial Day, the mother's hymn to generals. The American Legion fires blanks out over the lassitude of the cemetery in memory of sons who broke like light bulbs in a hoarse cry of dust. Now, behind bone in the perfect dark, the dream of animals. To remember the soft bellies of fish, the furred animals that were part of your youth, not for their novelty but as fellow creatures. I look at the rifles in their rack upon the wall, though I know the wars only as history. Some cellar in Europe might still owe some of its moistness to blood. With my head on the table I write, my arm outstretched in another field of richer grain. A red-haired doll stares at me from a high chair, her small pink limbs twisted about her neck. I salute the postures of women. This hammer of joy, this is no fist, but a wonderment got by cunning. The first thunderstorm of March came last night, and when I awoke the snow had passed away. The brown grass lay matted and pubic. Between the snow and grass, somewhere into the ground with the rain, a long year has gone. Cold August. The sun had shrunk to a dime, passing behind the smallest of clouds. The field was root bare, shorthorns had grazed it to leather. August's coldest day, when the green, unlike its former self, returned to earth as metal. Then from a swamp I saw two large shadows floating across the river, move up the sloping bank, float swiftly as shadows against the field towards where I stood. I looked up as two great red-tailed hawks passed overhead. For an instant I felt as prey, then wheeled to watch them disappear in southward course. Thin ice. Now this paste of ashen water, water slipping over ice, greenish brown water, white ice, November ice, thin as glass, shot with air. The Quinlan, soundless against the yellow grape leaves of the arbour, smallest of birds. Shrill day, the blowing, oily Atlantic off Strong's Neck, the salt smell drifts, blown through the newish Cape Cod homes. On such days children fall down wells, or drown, falling through thin first ice, or fall reaching after the last apple the picker neglected. The tree leafless, the apple spoiled anyway by frost. Toad freezes, snake's taken his hole, the cat makes much shorter trips, dog's bark is louder. The green has floated from earth, moved south, or drifted upward at night, invisible to us. Man walks throwing off a lone thin heat. This cold's life, death's steamy mark.